The wind moved through the tall pine trees at the edge of the valley. It made a soft sound like a whisper from the mountains. In that quiet place, a small boy sat beside a cold river. His name was Aaron. He was only 7 years old when his life changed forever. Aaron did not remember much about his family. He only remembered a night full of rain and thunder. He remembered the sound of voices shouting, and then everything went silent. When he woke up, he was alone in the forest. There was no one around him, only tall trees and wet soil under his hands. He cried until he had no voice left. Days passed. He was hungry and weak. He searched for food, but he did not know what to eat. He drank water from the river and hid under large rocks when it rained. At night, he watched the stars and tried to remember the faces of the people he had lost. One morning, when the sun was bright, Aaron heard a soft sound behind him. He turned and saw a small brown dog staring at him. The dog was thin but had kind eyes. It wagged its tail slowly. Aaron did not move. The dog walked closer and sniffed his hand. Aaron gave a small smile for the first time in days. He tore a piece of wild root he had found and gave it to the dog. The dog licked his hand instead of eating. That was the start of their friendship. Aaron named the dog Roof. From that day, they stayed together. Roof helped Aaron find food. He followed the smell of berries or small animals. Aaron learned from Roof how to listen to the forest. He began to understand the calls of birds and the warning sounds of other animals. He learned where to find water when the rivers ran low. Every day was hard, but Aaron grew stronger. His legs became fast and his eyes became sharp. He made a small shelter using fallen branches and dry leaves. He learned to make fire by rubbing 2 stones together. Roof always sat beside him watching the flames dance. The boy and the dog shared everything. When Aaron found food, Roof got half. When Roof caught a rabbit, Aaron roasted it and gave Roof the first bite. The seasons changed and years went by. The small boy became a strong young man. He had long brown hair and clear eyes that reflected the sky. His clothes were made from animal skin. He could climb the highest trees and swim through fast rivers. The forest had become his home. He no longer feared the dark or the wild cries in the night. Aaron built a new home in the mountains, higher than the valley where he had first been lost. He chose a place near a waterfall. The water was clean and cold. Around it were flowers and soft grass. He used stones to make walls and branches to make a roof. It took many days, but in the end he built a small hut strong enough to stand against storms. Roof helped in his own way. He guarded the area and warned Aaron whenever something strange moved in the forest. Together they hunted deer and gathered fruits. Aaron learned to dry meat using smoke so it would last for weeks. One evening, Aaron sat by the fire watching the sunset turn the sky red. Roof lay beside him, his head resting on Aaron's leg. Aaron looked at the dog and spoke in a calm voice. He told Roof how he once had a family, though he could not remember their faces. He said maybe they had gone far away, or maybe the forest had taken them. Roof lifted his head and barked softly, as if telling Aaron that he was not alone anymore. The next morning, Aaron decided to explore further up the mountain. He wanted to see what was beyond the tall cliffs. He packed dried meat, a hand-made knife of sharp stone, and a piece of deer skin for warmth. Roof followed close behind as they climbed the steep path. As they moved higher, the air grew colder, but the view became more beautiful. Aaron saw valleys covered with mist, rivers shining like silver, and eagles flying above the peaks. For a moment, he felt peace. He had no memories of the world beyond the forest, yet he felt that this mountain was his true home. But peace in the wild never lasted long. When the sun began to set, Aaron heard a strange noise in the distance. It was a cry, not of an animal, but of a human. Roof's ears stood up. Aaron froze for a moment. It had been many years since he had heard a human voice. He looked around and listened again. The cry came again, weaker this time. Without thinking, Aaron ran toward the sound. Roof followed close behind. They moved through the bushes and down a rocky slope until they reached a small clearing. There, under a fallen tree, was a person. It was a man dressed in torn clothes. His leg was trapped under a heavy branch. Aaron rushed forward. The man looked weak and frightened. Aaron used all his strength to lift the branch. The man cried out in pain but managed to pull his leg free. Aaron helped him sit up. Roof sniffed around and barked at the shadows. The man tried to speak, but his voice was faint. He said he had been lost for 2 days after falling from a mountain trail. He looked at Aaron with wide eyes, as if not believing that someone could live in this wild place. Aaron gave him water from his pouch and helped him stand. He guided him back toward his hut slowly. It took hours, but finally, they reached the small home near the waterfall. Aaron made a bed of leaves and placed the man there. He roasted meat and gave him food. The man ate with shaking hands. That night, Aaron sat outside with Roof staring at the stars. The sound of the waterfall filled the air. For the first time in many years, another human was near him. Aaron did not know if this was good or bad. The forest had taught him peace and silence, but it had also taught him to be careful. He looked at Roof, who was resting but keeping his eyes open. The man inside the hut slept deeply. Aaron knew that tomorrow questions would come. Who was this man? How did he reach the mountain? Was the world outside still the same one Aaron had left as a child? The fire crackled softly. The mountains stood tall around him like guardians. Aaron closed his eyes and whispered a promise to the forest that had raised him. No matter what came next, he and Roof would protect their home. The wild had made him strong, but it had also given him a heart that cared. The lonely boy who once cried by the river had grown into a man of the mountains, and his story was only beginning. The morning sun rose slowly over the mountains. Its light touched the small hut beside the waterfall where Aaron and Roof lived. The sound of rushing water filled the air as mist floated around the stones. Aaron stepped out of the hut and stretched his arms. The cold air brushed against his skin. He could hear birds singing in the distance. Inside the hut, the man Aaron had rescued was still asleep. His clothes were torn and his face looked pale. Roof sat near him, watching carefully. The dog did not growl, but his eyes stayed sharp. Aaron entered quietly and checked the man's leg. It was swollen and red, but not broken. He cleaned the wound with cold water and covered it with soft leaves that helped healing. When the man woke up, he looked around with confusion. He saw the small hut, the dog, and the young man sitting beside the fire. For a moment, he seemed unsure if he was awake or dreaming. "Where am I?" the man asked in a weak voice. Aaron looked at him and answered softly, "You are in the mountains. I found you under a fallen tree." The man tried to sit up. "How long have I been here?" "Since yesterday evening," Aaron said. "You were hurt and hungry. I brought you here." The man nodded slowly. He looked at Roof and smiled a little. "You live here alone with your dog?" Aaron gave a small nod. "Yes, the forest is my home." The man seemed surprised. "You mean you live here all the time? Away from everyone?" "Yes," Aaron said calmly. "I grew up here. I do not know any other place." The man stared at him for a moment. He looked around at the clean but simple hut and the beautiful waterfall behind it. "It is peaceful here," he said. "I almost cannot believe someone can live like this." Aaron handed him some cooked meat and berries. The man ate slowly, his hands shaking. "Thank you," he said after finishing. "My name is Thomas. I am from the valley below the mountain. I came here with a group of people to look for herbs and minerals. We got lost during a storm. I fell and could not find my way back." Aaron listened quietly. He had not heard of any valley for many years. His heart felt curious but careful. "How far is your valley?" he asked. "Not far," Tomas said. "If I had my strength, I could reach it in a day. People live there. We have farms, houses, and roads. It is safe." The words people and roads felt strange to Aaron. He had not seen a road since he was a small boy. For a long time he had thought no other humans lived near these mountains. Roof barked once, breaking Aaron's thoughts. The dog stood up and looked toward the trees. Aaron followed his gaze and saw a group of deer moving through the bushes. He smiled and patted Roof's head. Thomas watched them both. "You understand him?" he said with a hint of surprise. "Yes," Aaron replied. "He has been my friend since I was small. We learned everything together." Thomas looked at Aaron with respect. "You are strong," he said. "And you built all this by yourself?" Aaron nodded. "The mountain gives everything I need. Wood, water, food, and peace." The day passed slowly. Thomas rested while Aaron worked outside, repairing a part of the hut's wall and collecting dry wood. Roof followed him everywhere. When the sun began to set, Thomas came out and sat near the fire. He looked up at the orange sky and said, "You know, down in the valley, people have many things, but they do not have this kind of peace. They hurry all the time. They forget to listen to the wind." Aaron listened carefully. The words felt strange but honest. He looked at Thomas. "Why do they hurry?" Thomas smiled sadly. "Because they want more. More food, more land, more gold. They are never happy with what they have." Aaron looked into the fire. Then they have forgotten the meaning of life. The mountain gives enough. You only need to listen, Thomas nodded. You speak like a wise man. Aaron shook his head. I only speak what the forest has taught me. For the next few days, Thomas stayed with Aaron and Roof. His leg healed slowly. He watched how Aaron moved through the forest with quiet steps, how he caught fish using a sharp stick, and how he made rope from vines. Everything Aaron did looked simple but smart. Thomas felt amazed. One night when they sat beside the fire, Thomas said, "You could come with me when I go back. You could see the world outside the mountain." Aaron looked at him but said nothing. Roof lifted his head and stared at Thomas. The firelight showed a flash of sadness in Aaron's eyes. "I do not know that world," Aaron said finally. "Maybe it is not my place. But you could learn," Thomas said softly. "You could meet people, live in a real home, wear warm clothes, and never worry about food." Aaron smiled slightly. "I have all that here. The forest is my home. The trees are my roof, and the fire is my warmth." Thomas sighed. "You are different, Aaron. I think the world needs people like you." That night, Aaron could not sleep. He sat near the waterfall and looked at the stars. Roof came beside him and rested his head on Aaron's lap. Aaron stroked the dog's fur and whispered, "He says there is a world outside, Roof. A world with people. Do you think we should see it?" Roof looked up and wagged his tail once. The next morning, the sky was cloudy. Thomas said his leg felt better and that he was ready to return to his valley. Aaron helped him pack some food and water. Before leaving, Thomas looked around and said, "I will not forget this place." "Or you, Aaron," Aaron nodded. "Be careful on your way," Thomas smiled. "If you ever want to see the valley, come there. Ask anyone for Thomas of the River Farm. They will bring you to me." Aaron watched as Thomas slowly walked down the mountain path. Roof stood beside him, tail still. They watched until Thomas disappeared behind the trees. Then the forest grew quiet again. Days turned into weeks. Life returned to normal. Aaron hunted, fished, and cared for his small garden. Yet sometimes, when the wind blew from the south, he thought about the valley and the people who lived there. He imagined their houses, their lights, and the sound of voices. One evening, a strange sight caught his eye. Far in the distance, at the bottom of the mountain, a faint glow moved like fireflies in the dark. It looked like torches or lamps. Roof barked softly. Aaron narrowed his eyes. He felt something was different this time. The next morning, he went down to the lower path to look closer. There he found footprints, fresh and clear. They were not from animals. They were from boots. He followed them for a short distance until he saw signs of smoke from a small camp. Aaron stayed hidden behind the trees and watched. There were 3 men and 1 woman, all wearing thick coats. They were talking about the herbs they had come to find. Aaron could not hear much, but he understood enough. They were from the valley, just like Thomas. Roof looked at Aaron as if asking what to do. Aaron whispered, "We watch for now." For the first time in many years, the forest around him did not feel completely his own. The humans had come again, and something told him that this time they would not leave so easily. Aaron turned back toward his home with Roof at his side. The peace of the mountain was changing, and he could feel that his quiet life was about to face a new storm. The forest was calm as morning light poured over the mountains. Birds sang and the river flowed with its usual gentle sound. Aaron and Roof moved through the tall grass, checking the traps he had set for small animals. Life had been peaceful for weeks since Thomas left. Yet the memory of the valley visitors remained in Aaron's mind. Aaron paused and looked toward the lower mountains. He had followed their footprints before, but they had disappeared. Now he wondered why they had come. The forest had always been quiet, and humans rarely entered. The thought made him uneasy. Roof nudged his hand, sensing the tension. Aaron rubbed the dog's head and whispered, "We must be careful, Roof. They do not belong here." After breakfast, Aaron packed a small bag with food and water. He decided to follow the signs again, but quietly this time. Roof ran ahead, sniffing the ground and moving silently through the bushes. Aaron admired the dog's skill. Roof seemed to know every sound of the forest, every step of the wind. Together, they were like one being. As they moved down the mountain, Aaron noticed fresh footprints again. They were clear and deep, showing the weight of the people who had walked there. The forest had hidden them from plain sight, but the ground remembered. Aaron followed them carefully, using rocks and trees for cover. Ruth stayed beside him, ears alert. They reached a small clearing where the visitors had set up camp. Smoke rose from a tiny fire and they were cooking something in a pot. The people did not see Aaron or Ruth. Aaron crouched behind a large bush studying them. He counted 4 people, 3 men and 1 woman. They were speaking quietly but with serious voices. "We must find more herbs soon," the woman said. "The elders will be unhappy if we return empty-handed." One of the men nodded. "The mountain is dangerous. We need to be careful. Something feels different this time." Aaron's heart beat faster. They felt different. Not like Tomas, who had been lost and kind. These people seemed serious, like they had a purpose. He tightened his grip on the stick he always carried. Ruth growled softly, warning him of tension in the air. For hours Aaron watched. The visitors gathered herbs, examined rocks, and marked trees with small symbols. They did not see the signs Aaron had made to warn them away. They did not see Ruth hiding in the shadows. He realized that the humans were skilled and organized. They had likely come many times to this forest. When the sun began to set, Aaron decided to return home. He did not want to be caught near them. The forest was his home, and he could not risk losing it. Ruth followed quietly, and together they climbed back toward the waterfall. The sky turned orange and pink, and the mountains looked peaceful once again, hiding the secret of the visitors. That night, Aaron could not sleep. He sat near the fire and spoke to Ruth. "They are clever," he said. "I have to learn more about them. They will return." Ruth rested his head on his lap, listening as if he understood every word. Aaron thought about the valley, about Tomas, and about the humans in the forest. He realized that the world outside had begun to touch his quiet mountain life. The next morning, Aaron climbed to a higher point on the mountain to observe the area. From there, he could see the valley below. Smoke rose from small villages, and the fields were green with crops. Roads ran through the trees, and he could see tiny figures moving along them. It was a strange sight, and he felt both curious and cautious. He returned to his hut and spent the day preparing. He sharpened his stone knife, repaired his shelter, and packed extra dried meat. Ruth stayed near him, sensing the change in Aaron's mood. The forest was still safe, but something was coming. 2 days later, the visitors returned. Aaron had been watching from a distance. This time, they moved more quickly, carrying baskets and tools. He noticed that they split into pairs, moving through the trees and searching carefully. Aaron's heart raced. They were getting closer to his home. Aaron whispered to Ruth, "We cannot let them take anything from our forest." Ruth barked once and ran ahead to check the path. Aaron followed slowly, using every tree and rock for cover. They reached a small ridge where he could see the visitors without being seen. The woman knelt near a bush picking herbs, while the men searched nearby. One of them found a footprint Aaron had made and looked around. Aaron froze. The man bent down, examining it carefully. Ruth growled low, warning him. The man looked puzzled but did not call out. Aaron felt relief but knew they were close. Suddenly, Ruth ran forward and barked loudly. The visitors jumped back in surprise. Aaron yelled for Ruth to stop. The dog circled around, standing between Aaron and the humans. The visitors stepped back, unsure what to do. Aaron emerged from behind the trees, holding his stick firmly but without attacking. "I do not want trouble," Aaron said firmly. "This is my home. You are not welcome here." The woman stood up slowly. "Who are you?" she asked. "How did you survive here alone?" Aaron did not answer right away. He studied them carefully. "I live here with my dog. The forest is my home. You must leave." The man who had found the footprint stepped forward. "We mean no harm. We only gather herbs. We do not take more than we need." Aaron shook his head. "If you come back again, you will face the forest's rules. We live here in peace, and you cannot destroy that." The visitors looked at each other and nodded. They carefully gathered their tools and baskets, moving back toward the valley. Aaron stayed hidden until they disappeared from sight. Then he returned to his hut, feeling both tired and alert. Roof followed, tail wagging but eyes sharp. That night, Aaron sat by the fire and thought about the events. The visitors were not Thomas, but they reminded him that the world outside the mountains existed and that humans could enter his home at any time. He realized that living in the forest was not just about finding food and shelter. It was also about protecting it. Roof nudged his hand, sensing his worry. Aaron smiled and said, "We will be ready, Roof. The forest has taught us everything we need to know." Days passed. Aaron strengthened his traps and built a new watch point on a high rock. From there he could see the paths leading to his home. Roof stayed close, guarding and watching. They moved silently through the forest, learning every sound, every shadow. The mountains were alive, and Aaron listened carefully. One evening, while watching the sunset, Aaron noticed something different. A bird he had never seen before perched on a branch, calling with a loud voice. Its wings were wide, and its colors were bright. The bird seemed to watch him. Aaron felt a strange sense of connection. He realized that the forest had allies too, creatures that could warn him of danger. The next day, Aaron explored further down the mountain. He found new plants, small streams, and caves he had never seen before. He felt proud of his home. The forest was vast, and he was its guardian. He could not allow outsiders to harm it. Roof ran ahead, barking at the small animals they encountered, playing but alert. That night, Aaron made a small plan. If the visitors returned, he would be ready. He marked paths, set small alarms using branches and rocks, and trained Roof to signal him. The boy who had once been abandoned in the forest had grown into a young man who could defend it. As the stars shone brightly over the mountains, Aaron whispered to Roof, "We are not alone, but this forest is ours. No one can take it from us." Roof rested his head on Aaron's lap, and the night was calm once again. Yet in the distance, in the valley below, the visitors were preparing for another journey. They did not know that someone in the mountains had seen them, had watched, and had learned their ways. The story of Aaron and his dog was far from over, and the mountain paradise would not be easily forgotten. The morning sun shone over the mountains, casting long shadows over the forest. Aaron and Roof were already awake, moving silently through the tall grass. The previous encounters with the valley visitors had made Aaron more careful. He knew the forest was beautiful, but it was also fragile, and he was its guardian. Aaron checked the traps he had set the day before. Some had caught small animals, which he used for food. He prepared a fire near the waterfall, boiling water for the day. Roof ran ahead, sniffing the ground and marking the paths with his nose. Together they moved like one being, completely aware of the forest around them. Aaron's thoughts were on the visitors. He had seen how organized they were, how carefully they moved, and how much they wanted to find herbs and other things. He knew that if they returned with more people, the forest could be in danger. He needed a plan. He decided to explore the paths that led deeper into the mountains. He wanted to know every hiding place, every cave, and every tree that could help him protect his home. Roof followed him, stepping carefully over rocks and roots. Birds flew above them, and small animals watched silently from the bushes. The forest seemed to recognize Aaron and Roof as its protectors. Hours passed as they climbed higher. Aaron found a small cave hidden behind a waterfall. It was deep and dry, with soft moss on the ground. He decided it could be a safe place if they ever needed to hide from humans or storms. Roof ran inside, sniffing every corner, and Aaron laughed. The dog had always been curious and brave. They returned to the hut. Aaron began to set small alarms around the area. He used branches, rocks, and even some of the vines from nearby trees. If anyone stepped on certain paths, the branches would fall, and the rocks would roll, making noise. Roof learned quickly, standing watch and barking only when something unusual moved through the forest. That night, Aaron sat beside the fire, looking at the stars. The waterfall's sound was calm and steady. Roof rested his head on Aaron's lap, and the young man spoke softly. "The forest is our home, Roof. We must keep it safe. No one can destroy this peace while we are here." A few days later, Aaron noticed smoke rising in the valley again. The visitors had returned. This time they moved carefully and Aaron could see more people with them. He stayed hidden behind the trees, watching as they spread out in the lower forest. His heart beat faster. He knew he had to be ready. Aaron signaled Roof to stay close and moved silently to a higher ridge. From there, he could watch the visitors without being seen. He noticed they had tools, baskets, and even a small tent. They were planning to stay for several days. Aaron realized he had to act smart, not only to protect the forest but also to make the visitors understand that this was not a place to take anything from. He decided to use the forest itself as his ally. He led Roof through hidden paths, cutting down small branches to make noise at the edges of the visitors' camp. He moved carefully, throwing stones to roll down slopes. The sound made the visitors look around nervously. Aaron did not show himself. He wanted them to feel the presence of the forest, not the boy who lived in it. The visitors tried to find the source of the sounds. One man went toward the trees and found a trap Aaron had set. It snapped shut harmlessly, scaring the man but not hurting him. Aaron watched from above, satisfied that his warning was clear. The forest was alive, and it protected itself. At night, Aaron built a small fire near the ridge, far from the visitors' camp. He kept watch with Roof. The visitors gathered around their own fire, talking quietly about the strange occurrences. They did not know that the boy they had underestimated was watching and guiding the forest around them. The next morning, Aaron decided to approach the visitors carefully. He wanted them to see him, not just feel the forest. He moved slowly, keeping Roof close. As he stepped into a small clearing, the visitors noticed him. Roof growled softly, standing between Aaron and the humans. Aaron spoke in a calm voice. "You do not belong here. This forest is my home. If you stay, you must leave peacefully. Take nothing but what the forest gives freely." The visitors were surprised. One of them stepped forward. "Who are you? How can a boy live here alone?" "I am Aaron," he said. "I have lived here since I was a child. The forest is my family and I protect it. You may gather herbs if you ask, but do not take more than what is needed. Respect the forest, or you will feel its warning." The visitors looked at each other, unsure what to do. They had not expected to meet someone who lived entirely in the wild and understood it so well. They nodded slowly. "We will leave," the woman said. "We did not know this forest was guarded. We will respect your home." Aaron nodded, but stayed alert. Roof barked softly, watching the visitors move back toward the valley. They took only small amounts of herbs and left the rest untouched. Aaron watched them until they disappeared from sight. The forest was safe again. Days turned into weeks. Aaron and Roof continued their routine, exploring the mountains, checking traps, and keeping watch. Aaron had become stronger, smarter, and more connected to the forest than ever. Roof stayed close, always alert and protective. Together, they understood the rhythm of the mountains and the secrets of the wild. One evening, while sitting beside the waterfall, Aaron noticed a strange bird flying low. Its feathers were bright and it seemed to be calling him. He followed it quietly, and Roof stayed near. The bird led him to a hidden grove filled with rare flowers and fruits. Aaron realized that the forest had rewards for those who respected it. He carefully collected some seeds and marked the area for future use. The forest had become more than a home. It was a world full of life, beauty, and secrets. Aaron had learned to live with it, understand it, and protect it. Roof had become more than a companion. He was a friend, a guard, and a partner in the wild. One morning, Aaron heard a familiar voice. It was Thomas, coming back to the mountain. Aaron smiled but stayed hidden for a moment, observing. Thomas had brought small gifts from the valley, food, cloth, and a warm blanket. He left them at the edge of the forest as an offering. Aaron understood the gesture. Thomas respected the forest and Aaron's life within it. That day, Aaron decided to explore further than ever before. He wanted to see all the mountains surrounding his home. Roof ran ahead, eager and playful. Aaron climbed cliffs, crossed streams, and walked through dense trees. The view from the highest peak amazed him. Valleys stretched for miles, rivers shone like silver, and the clouds floated gently above the mountains. He felt proud. This was his home, and he had earned it through courage, wisdom, and patience. At sunset, Aaron and Ruth returned to the hut. The fire crackled, and the waterfall flowed steadily. Aaron looked at Ruth and said, "We have done well, Ruth. The forest is safe. We are ready for anything that comes next." The night was calm. Stars filled the sky, and the mountains seemed to watch over them. Aaron understood that living in the wild required more than strength. It required patience, respect, and understanding of every living thing. Ruth rested beside him, eyes half closed but alert. Together they were a team, guardians of a mountain paradise that no human could easily disturb. Though the visitors had come, Aaron knew that as long as he respected the forest and stayed alert, the mountains would remain his home. And so the boy who had once been abandoned in the wild had grown into a man who could protect, survive, and thrive. The forest was alive, and so was he. The first light of dawn spread gently over the mountains. The forest was quiet, with only the soft sound of birds and the flowing waterfall filling the air. Aaron and Ruth were already awake. The young man stretched and breathed the fresh morning air, feeling the cold wind on his face. Today, he thought, would be a good day to explore deeper into the forest. Ruth barked softly, urging him to hurry. Aaron smiled. The dog had been his companion for many years, a friend who never left his side. Together, they had survived the wild, learned its secrets, and protected their mountain home from visitors who did not understand it. Aaron packed some dried meat, a small bag of berries, and his handmade knife. Ruth ran ahead, sniffing the air and checking the paths. Aaron followed carefully, moving silently through the trees. He knew the forest better than anyone. Every rock, every tree, every sound was familiar to him. They climbed higher than ever before. The mountain slopes were steep and the air grew colder. Yet Aaron felt alive. From the top, he could see valleys stretching for miles, rivers winding through green fields, and clouds floating low over distant peaks. He felt proud. This was his world, and he had made it his home. As they descended into a hidden valley, Aaron discovered a small grove of wild fruits. He had never seen these berries before. Ruth sniffed them curiously. Aaron tasted one carefully. Sweet and refreshing, it was perfect. He gathered some in a small basket. He thought about planting seeds near his hut so the forest could grow even richer. While exploring, Aaron heard a faint sound. It was a voice, human but soft, calling in the distance. He froze. For years he had lived alone with Ruth. Encounters with other humans had been rare. Yet he felt no fear, only curiosity. Ruth's ears stood up, alert as ever. Aaron moved quietly toward the sound, careful not to be seen. He discovered a small family from the valley. They were lost, searching for herbs and firewood. They looked tired and frightened. Aaron watched from behind a tree. He could see their struggle and knew that without help they might get lost further in the mountains. Aaron stepped forward slowly, Ruth at his side. The family looked up, startled. The father's eyes widened in surprise. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm Aaron," the young man said calmly. "This forest is my home. You are safe here, but you must follow me. I will show you a path back to the valley." The family nodded gratefully. Aaron guided them carefully through the forest. He pointed out safe paths, clean water, and places where they could rest. Ruth ran ahead, keeping watch for any danger. The journey took hours, but eventually, they reached a part of the forest that led to a known valley path. The father thanked Aaron, his eyes full of respect. "You live here alone? This forest is dangerous. How did you survive?" Aaron smiled. "The forest teaches you everything if you listen. It gives food, water, and shelter. You must respect it." The family promised to remember his words. They returned to the valley with gifts for the elders, sharing the story of the boy who lived with a dog in the mountains. Aaron watched them disappear from sight, feeling proud. He had helped humans without letting them disturb the peace of his home. After they left, Aaron and Ruth returned to their hut. The forest seemed to welcome them. Birds sang, the river flowed steadily, and the trees swayed gently in the wind. Aaron sat by the fire and watched Ruth play with a small squirrel that had come near. Life in the forest was simple yet full of beauty and joy. Days turned into weeks. Aaron continued to explore, gather food, and care for the forest. He planted seeds from the wild fruits he had discovered. He built small bridges over streams, repaired parts of the hut, and made paths easier to walk on. Ruth stayed close, always alert, always ready. One morning, Thomas returned. The young man had brought a small bag of food and some warm clothes. He smiled when he saw Aaron and Ruth. "You have made this place even better," he said. "I am proud of you," Aaron nodded. "The forest has given me everything. I only care for it in return." Thomas spent a few days with Aaron learning about the forest and the mountains. He helped plant seeds, collect firewood, and fish in the river. Ruth enjoyed Thomas's company but always returned to Aaron, showing where his true home was. Before leaving, Thomas said, "Aaron, you are strong, kind, and wise. You have grown in the wild and learned more than most people could. But remember, the world outside the mountains exists. You may choose to see it one day." Aaron smiled but shook his head. "The forest is my home. I am happy here. I do not need more than what it gives me." The forest continued to thrive. Animals moved freely, rivers flowed clean and bright, and the air was fresh and pure. Aaron and Ruth lived in harmony with the mountains, understanding every change in the wind and every sound in the trees. One evening, Aaron climbed to the highest peak. The sky was painted with orange, pink, and purple as the sun set. He looked around, seeing the vast forest below. Ruth sat beside him, tail wagging softly. Aaron felt a deep sense of peace. He remembered the lonely boy he once was, sitting beside the river, abandoned and scared. Now he was strong, capable, and loved by the forest. Aaron thought about the future. He would continue to explore, protect, and live in harmony with the mountains. He would care for Ruth, the animals, and the plants. He understood the forest better than anyone else, and it trusted him. He had learned patience, wisdom, and courage. That night, Aaron built a fire beside his hut and sat with Ruth. The stars filled the sky, reflecting in the river. The forest whispered around them, a song of peace and life. Aaron whispered, "We are home, Ruth. This is where we belong." Ruth rested his head on Aaron's lap, happy and calm. The young man looked at the fire and the mountains, feeling the strength and beauty of the life he had built. He had survived the wild-faced humans and protected his home. The forest was his family, and Ruth was his closest friend. From that day on, Aaron continued to live in the mountains, exploring new valleys, caring for the forest, and enjoying the simple joys of life. He had learned that happiness came from respect, courage, and love for the world around him. Ruth stayed by his side, always loyal, always brave. People from the valley occasionally visited, and Aaron helped them understand the forest. He showed them how to take only what was needed, respect the mountains, and live in harmony with nature. The boy who had once been abandoned had grown into a guardian, a teacher, and a protector of a mountain paradise. The forest thrived under Aaron's care. Animals lived safely, trees grew tall and strong, and rivers flowed clean and bright. The mountains were full of life, and Aaron and Ruth were at the heart of it all. They had built a home in the wild, a place of peace, strength, and happiness. Aaron often sat beside the waterfall, watching the water rush over the rocks. Ruth lay beside him, content and calm. The sun shone through the trees, casting shadows that danced gently on the ground. The young man smiled, thinking about the journey that had brought him here. He remembered the lonely nights, the hunger, and the fear he had felt as a small boy. Now he had everything he needed. The forest had given him life, Ruth had given him friendship, and together they had created a world of peace and beauty. The mountains, the forest, and the river were alive, and so was he. The boy who had once been abandoned in the wild had grown up to live a life full of freedom, happiness, and harmony. He had found his place in the world, and he would protect it forever. Aaron whispered to Ruth one last time that night, "We are home. This is our paradise." Ruth wagged his tail gently, and the two of them sat in silence, listening to the wind, the water, and the forest that had become their family. The mountain paradise was theirs. It would remain safe, beautiful, and alive as long as Aaron and Ruth watched over it. And in the heart of the mountains, the boy who once had nothing had found everything he could ever need.